I wouldn't remember.
Yeah?
The great thing was when I was up there, the sun was just right in my face. I looked like a big glowing halo.
I know. I was going to see myself and I was like, oh.
Why does it say there's offline? It's not.
Yeah, and can we see?
Oh, there we go.
I'm touching fine.
Yeah, there we go.
You go. Wake up of a bit. Let's see another bit. I think I'm out the bag.
No, Jem, I can just click on the screen on the
Yeah, okay. I want to wake up bit. It's gone now.
So, are you ready to go if I just announce the session? No? Okay.
Yeah, but we're just thinking, oh my god.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public chocolate.
So,
Chocolate's never fine.
so we're just Amble. So we're just gonna start our final panel session now. There should have been 3 speakers in this session, but one of them couldn't come because of illness. So we're going to have 2 talks and then a panel discussion. And the general theme of this, which I'm not sure if it still applies, but we'll keep the theme anyway for the panel, was looking at sort of DIY and community cultures, which are maybe happening outside of institutions or outside of like what's accepted as the mainstream. So whenever you're ready, this is Gemma Nash.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you go up a bit at the top?
Yeah.
If you press the green button, it will go at the very top left.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You're right.
Hey.
Right, okay. Can I have the screen a bit nearer, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Right, so hello everybody. Hi. So so I was boarding. I'm supposed to describe myself as a sound artist, but very much my sound artist. I'm not, I'm not got a degree in any sort of sound-related subject whatsoever. I came into it really for DJing. So if you move to the next. Yes, I've got a geography on the next screen, which I think does obviously influence my interest in sound and spatial processes, musical humanities, health geography, and of course disability studies. So, as a disabled woman, I think I face very specific barriers, and it's been interesting sort of listening to conversations about barriers that we face as women. Certainly, going back to, my school days, it wasn't on the radar at all to do anything like music or even art. I was very much pushed into sort of more traditional humanities-based subjects like geography, politics, and actually technology, which has been quite useful, but there was no sort of assisted music technology available whatsoever. So, and I still think I continue to face barriers. Obviously, access is a big one, physically actually making instruments accessible for people with physically disabled. Barriers is still quite a new area organisations like Joint Music are looking into. I think the bigger barrier in many ways is attitude, and it's quite interesting sort of going to workshops and groups that are very disability friendly may not be that friendly when you're a woman working in this field. You're still faced with a lot of misogynistic attitudes. Recently, I went to a group aimed at supporting disabled musicians. I won't name and shame, but one of the technical guys said, likened it to women's knitting circle. I said, what do you mean a women's knitting circle? That's really a little bit, slightly offensive. He said, oh, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I said, no, I don't know what you mean, because you're assuming that women don't like technology, and you're also assuming that men aren't into textiles and knitting. So anyway, it was quite funny in a way. So if you, yes, recently I've sort of been lucky enough to get a few commissions. So one was working at the Medical History Museum in Leeds called the Thackeray Museum, and I worked on a commission looking at the ancient medical procedure of bloodletting. I've also worked with an organisation called Shelly, again based in Leeds, on a joint commission working with a textile artist, and it was a colder one with a view, and it was really a sound collage of interviews with disabled women about how they felt about their bodies, fertility issues, and issues around sterilisation, false sterilisation, actually questioning gender and whether actually do we need a woman to be a woman. So I'm quite interested in issues about medical ethics. I'm currently on an East Sound of Music whole-place residency, which is quite interesting because that's specifically for disabled people, because what they found was that there are organisations, I don't know if you've heard of them, based in London, and they support new composers, and what they found was they didn't have enough disabled people that identified as being disabled, so they set up a specific residency aimed at disabled composers. So if you move on, sorry if you just keep checking, so I'm trying to be clever there.
Oh right, I see.
Yeah,
I can see it now.
Can you? Yeah. So, how are we doing for time?
You've got about 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. So I thought I'd talk quickly about my current line of inquiry into that upper body. So I'm really interested in concepts around the voice and the non-normative voice. Now, this obviously comes from a personal perspective because, as you can hear, I've got quite a clear speech impairment, and I'm interested in how that impacts upon the way that I view the world and the way my embodied experience might be different to other people's. No, but I'm also interested in how it interrupts our understanding of personal perspective when you look at people who use language in a very different ways. People who are non-verbal, for example, but also presents a possibility of transcending vocal perfection by the use of technology and electronic voices, and it's a work in progress. So if you keep, just quickly, so I've been looking into the social construction of the normal speaker. So I mentioned a bit, so this is quite interesting. I don't know if anyone wants to read it out. Any volunteers?
To read it out?
Yes.
The right hand one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Spoken discourse is often given as the most basic and universal form of exchanging information, and as such has occupied a central role in questions of human rationality, agency, and identity. Shall I read the next part?
Yes, please.
However, even within disability studies, very little thought has been given to the actual form of speech production as an embodied act.
Yeah, and I was interested. So Josh here has got a stutter himself, and I've been looking at the history of stuttering. Really interested in the work of Lucia. I'm sitting in a room where he re-records himself doing the same text, and how the residents of that room changes it into just noise. So you keep. Yeah, I don't think we've got time for this time, but the actual is quite interesting when you look into the literature and cultural references when it comes to people who speak differently, and how actually within say witchcraft, speaking differently was very much linked to being possessed and being evil. So if you move on, but with stammering men during World War I and World War II were labelled as weak and effeminate and less than human, but interested in women. That's completely reversed. It seemed to be that again they're possessed, that they've got unwanted political agency and they should be silenced. So if you move on, then we're end on this. So I think, I think we often read about body beautiful and body fashion, but I think also there is a thing of vocal supremacy. So if you move on, and around gender and vocal shaming, one interesting article, newspaper article, I probably read it in Daily Mail, I read that one, around how Jeremy Corbyn hasn't got a masculine enough voice. I think we forget how important the voice is. I think I've run out of time, haven't I?
If you want to make some wrapping up statements, that's fine.
Okay, can you move on to Scott?
You're...
Yeah, I mean, I'll end it on this actually, because this is really what I'm really quite interested in, is the concept of both vocal perception and synthetic voices. And really I'll end it on a question, which is, will a bionic impaired voice one day be so appealing that people choose it? This type of augmentation over biological speech. So maybe end it on that question. Okay. Thank you.
So we'll have you back at the end, but first we'll have Vicky's.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Squid. Oops. Yeah, I think it's on this one. Yeah, I'm trying to.
So if you press the escape button.
I have several times.
Or press Command Q.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then go to desktop.
Yeah, just trash it.
Yeah, if you just right click on it, which is Control and click.
Is it not dragging it down to the...
Oh yeah, you can drag it down to the bin as well. Yeah, do that.
Which one?
It's just a nightmare dragging things on this trackpad. I haven't got a hang of it yet. So if you go, jet.
All right,
You can go to here, go to the desktop.
Okay.
And it's the bottom
Full screen.
That one.
Okay.
So our last talk of the day is from Vicky Clarke.
Hey, good afternoon. Hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me today. My name's Vicky. I'm a sound artist based in Manchester. I'm going to talk today a bit about just what I do and some of the sound objects and the instruments that I build. Specifically about a project called Mose Orchestra that I lead with my friend Dave. So I should say, so I'm kind of freelance, kind of full-time freelance pretty much, but I also work on a project called Delia Derbyshire Day, one day a week with Caro C in Manchester. So I'm kind of really interested in promoting other female electronic musicians in the field. And giving kind of a voice to them really. So my work I kind of wrote down just when everyone's been talking, kind of it's made me rethink what the themes of my work are about. And I'd have written things to do with formats, sound objects, handmade electronics and field recordings. So lots of different things. So I'd say in my own practice, I'm interested in kind of sound sculpture and kind of the resonant properties of objects and exploring materials. So my solo work kind of falls into these two strands. So kind of sound sculpture on one hand, making the physical objects. My background's in visual arts. And on this side, I create kind of soundscapes, often using archives, field recordings, work with electronic musical instruments. And I kind of guess my first insight into music production, kind of working with electronics, was about 10 years ago. I did a course, an electronic music production course called WISAMP, which was Women in Sound Engineering and Music Production, based at the School of Sound Recording in Manchester. And that was sort of my first insight into kind of music production. And then I didn't do much with it for maybe 10 years. I always kind of used the software, but not so much. And now only in the last kind of year, I've kind of recently got back into it. And now people have started kind of giving me the name of, female electronic musician person. Like, okay, yes, I'm starting to use this stuff again. So it's just funny, interested in kind of the labels and how people sort of define what you're doing. So these are just some of the sound sculptures that I've been making on previous residencies. This was one at the Penthouse in Manchester. This was about artist-led spaces and the gentrification of the Northern Quarter. So there's lots of kind of building materials, found sounds collected from around the area. And I guess the sculptures that I was making kind of started as kind of installation pieces, but they'd always have some sort of interactive element. And I kind of started developing my knowledge of kind of electronics and amplification. And now they've kind of become a little bit more performative as well. So this was a piece last year in Berlin. I did kind of just a short sound art course about public sound intervention. So this is a theremin that people would walk past on the tube, and it would kind of interact as people walk past, so you could play the theremin as you walk past into this station. So it's kind of subverting the idea of a surveillance camera. It had a speaker in it, so rather than kind of surveying people, it would kind of blast out this wow, this insane like theremin noise. And so there's some quite interesting films of people walking past and realising that they're like affecting what's happening. So that really annoyed people for a long time, which I enjoy annoying people. So this was just last week. So this is sort of the first performance that I've done using one of the sound sculptures, but as a performative object. So I was invited to do a piece for the Manchester After Hours, responding to Dealey Derbyshire's archive there. So for this, I was really looking at her working methods. So if you can see here, it's kind of these industrial metal pieces that I got from this skip, basically, and it's using tape as well. So I'd kind of use magnetic tape, contact mic recordings. I'd put cassette tape on the bow, and then all of the the metal was microphonic. And then in the soundscape, I'd kind of been to this place called Eve Studios in Stockport, where they have lots of kind of ex-BBC radiophonic tape machines. So I'd kind of made field recordings and sampled that, so there's lots of kind of ka-chunks and things. And this is kind of my setup here, so I try and incorporate kind of homemade electronics with Ableton, with kind of physical sound sculptures. So that's what I'm trying to do. But yeah, just going to talk briefly about my... Oh, God, what was that? My goodness! There's a sound sculpture. There you go. Sonic boom. Exciting, wasn't it? So yes, this is my project Noise Orchestra, and this is myself and a guy called Dave Birchall, been working together for about 2 years, and we're sort of interested in exploring how you can kind of transfer light into sound, and we kind of make performances and installations, and we've been developing these things called noise machines for the past year, which they're kind of modular units, and they have light sensors on them, so they're kind of like drones and delays and sequences. I'm kind of interested in them as sort of performative objects. So the idea came from research that I was doing at art school into the Russian avant-garde, looking at the optical soundtracks, and became really kind of excited about this sort of period of art history after the revolution, artists and scientists kind of working together in these crazy experimentation labs. And this is one of my heroes, Arseny Evramov. Yay! Big up! He's so good. So these are some of his original scores. I just became really fascinated by the idea that you could listen to the sounds of shapes, and started to really think about how you could play landscapes, how you could create rhythms out of light, out of patterns. And also just researching into kind of noise machines and the idea of people making their own instruments and repurposing objects and using equipment that was found from various places and kind of salvaging components and making your own kind of sounding objects. So we were doing schools workshops, and we started just making the kind of A1 light theremin kind of kits, and then started doing installations with sort of turntables and paper scores, and creating these kind of rhythmic patterns out of light. And the first sort of big project we did was we were artists in residence at the Media Museum over in Bradford, and the brief for that was to kind of explore the collections through technology and light. So we had the idea that we could play the collections, play the objects in the museum and make these scores out of them. So we worked with the curators, and we selected objects and images from the collections that then we made these kind of paper cut scores. So this is one of my favourite objects. This is the Russian photo sniper camera, which kids loved that because they're like, Dad, it's a camera and a gun, it's so good. People loved it. And then just kind of playing like skylines, this sort of stuff. And we actually got to go on a research trip to Moscow to research some of the noise machines, and met Andrei Smirnov, who'd written the book Sound in Z. Got to play in some of Theremin's original machines, which was pretty cool. I can't play this video because this isn't my presentation, unfortunately. Maybe can I quickly go down here? Oops. I put it on was the internet still on here?
Yeah.
I think I had...
Or do you put...
Maybe I
Prime Chrome?
Oh, there
Yay.
you go. Yeah, okay. Oops. So just a quick 10 seconds of this, so you can kind of see this is sort of the final performance. But just so you can see what it looked like a little bit. Is it going to work?
Come on, Jerome.
Is it going to work there?
Too much streaming.
Too much streaming, yeah. No, well, I'll go back to it. It's fine. Bear with. Oops. Sorry, I'm not a Mac person. 1 second. Okay. Okay, so so basically we did a performance at the Media Museum. Oh, someone help me. I don't know why this I can see on here. Let's just drop the connection.
Has it powered down?
I don't know.
It's inconvenient.
Never flip between various screens during presentation.
Oh. Can you just press escape?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Then
Play from here.
Is it on the right? It's not says it's on DVI. Should it be on VGA?
yeah, it is on VGA, but
Sorry.
Hey!
Oh, here. Okay.
broke it.
Yeah.
It's working.
And so, okay. That's full screen? No.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, so I'll be really quick. Sorry, because I'm losing time. Okay, so we did the residency at the museum, and then we were accepted for a thing called an Arts and Tech Accelerator. And I should say at this point we were complete beginners at electronics. We were totally self-taught. We'd never kind of even done GCSE electronics. So on this Arts and Tech Accelerator, it was for artists to have an idea that they could realise within 3 months. So this was kind of a crash course into kind of the hackspace culture and the hackspace world. We started learning all these new skills, kind of breadboarding, and kind of learning how to read schematics. Really kind of prototyping the idea of could these noise machines be a product or something that people would actually play as an instrument. So starting to think about the ergonomics of the design, and just learning loads of different kind of processes, and kind of really basic prototyping using kind of paper stencils and things like this. And we did lots of live testing in terms of sort of small installations. And one of the things that we found was that in terms of kind of in an installation context, that the audience would actually impact on the sound quite obviously. So it meant that it was completely interactive and people wanted to kind of to get hold of the objects and be part of the environment. So this was the sort of final design that we kind of went for on the Hack Lab course. And then we kind of got to a certain stage where we thought, actually we're kind of getting a little bit better at the electronics, but we want to go the next step further and kind of ask other artists to start playing with the machines and see what they can do with them. So the next kind of stage of that, we've just finished a 6-month project funded by Innovate UK, and that was to explore kind of how the noise machines could be used as sort of performance objects. So how could electronic musicians use these machines to incorporate light and gesture in performance? So we had focus groups in Manchester and in Berlin who were sort of testing out the circuits as we went along, feeding back. So it's kind of that idea of sort of co-production and kind of this co-community idea of people saying, this doesn't sound that great, could you make it sound like this? Or it would be great if it looked in this way. So we were constantly coming back and forth with the focus groups. And these were some of the original circuits that we started testing out with people. That was last year at Brighter Sound. So we're very kind of community-based, always kind of sharing what we're doing. We were doing things like posting our kind of studio experiments online, and that built up kind of a few followers, and people were saying, this sounds really great, or it would be good if it could do this. So we kind of like the idea of including the community with developing these as instruments. And then, so yeah, we were kind of sort of catapulted into this world of kind of the synth world, which I have no previous experience of. So for research for the Innovate UK project, I was going to things like Synthfest UK, which I never thought I'd actually get to go to. And it was just really interesting to see people's responses, almost kind of like, well, why are you here? And people telling me things. So I'd be sat in a lecture and someone would tell me, oh, have you heard of Theremin? I was like, yeah, I played on his Rhythmicon 2 weeks ago. You'd be like, okay, shut up. You know, just things like this, and people constantly trying to tell you stuff, or have you made that yourself, love? You'd be like, yeah, I've made that myself. So there was a thing at Signs and Squares Festival at the university, and there was kind of like a marketplace where you could show what you've been making. It's kind of like a synth kind of fair, as it were. and I realised that modular synth fairs mainly are people that have kind of bought kind of off the shelf synths and put them together in a box, but all of our stuff was things that we'd actually made. And I was the only girl in the room at this whole fair, and people telling me things. Interesting it was. So next year we're going to hopefully work with the university and see if we can kind of get more female performers and all this sort of stuff.
We've still got a couple of minutes left.
2 minutes. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, as part of the project, I went to work at Native Instruments for a week, those CTM festival that happens every January, and we did a hack lab, which was really exciting. So it was the first time we tested out some of the circuitry with other musicians to see how you could actually perform with them, which is quite interesting. So I worked with a turntablist and a guitarist, and it was quite high pressure to try and perform with wires, kind of patching wires to breadboards. It was quite stressful, but we did it in the end. It went really well. So it's always been really important for us to test out what we're making with other people. And then just looking at kind of what's happening across Europe in terms of kind of creative interface development, what the strategies are, and there's lots of kind of focus on they have the playground able to loop, people showcasing what they're working. So there's this, even kind of with the big corporations, there's this love for people making handmade objects, and people are open to trying to find what's the new creative interface and the new way to play music. So just quickly before I finish, we do a lot of workshops with kids and young people as well. So we've been developing these little kits for people to make little noise machines, which has been quite interesting. To kind of go back to basics, because I think electronics is kind of going out of the curriculum as well. But just the physicality of working with the wires is something that I particularly enjoy. And yeah, so to finish where we're up to at the moment, we finished the Innovate project with a live demonstration in Manchester, and we invited other artists to come to the studio, give them the machines to see what they could do within their own setups. So the artists that we selected kind of represented different ways of working. So Andrea was playing using an Isadora with the machines. Dan Valentine was kind of using them as kind of effects pedals and sampling them. We had Raina Vale was kind of using them in terms of kind of using drones and delays and the voice and modular synths. So just to see what the potentials of them could be. So these are some images from the show. And these are just a couple of the electronics, kind of like the final pieces that we made for the Innovate project. So that's kind of the end, and I suppose just to wrap up, it's kind of the journey of being involved in this whole electronics world and the synth world that I've kind of found myself into as a female, and kind of I find that I kind of I don't know. It's been interesting to think of the labels that people associate with you, like you're a woman doing tech, and you're just kind of doing making what I'm making and doing what I'm doing, but then receiving all of this other information, I suppose, which is quite interesting. So in my own practice, I'm just looking forward to kind of keeping on with the electronics, developing the machines and the interface, and seeing how I can perform with this with kind of Ableton and other sort of music production scenarios. Yeah, that's what I said.
Gemma, do you want to come back and we'll do a Q&A/panel discussion? We'll just... we finished that floor. Would you actually be able to sit there and there? It would be much easier for the for my tech makeshift. Okay. Does anyone have a question to start?
Yeah, Gemma. What do you think about the synthetic voice system, and what would you do? Would you prefer it, or how would you use it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting debate really about communication aids, and that I've got friends that are really forcefully advocating using a communication aid above their speech, whereas I've got other friends who prefer to communicate with the assistance of a human being, so they communicate with you through their PA, and I can see how both can be, really collaborating. I mean, I have used the communication aid, but not on a regular basis, and it wouldn't be something that I wouldn't consider. But I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah.
I thought your talk raised some interesting ideas for me about some of the work I've done in the past in relation to accents.
Yeah.
So in Ireland, we kind of have a class-based system that's sort of a leftover from colonisation and kind of but we don't have the same class system as the UK, so we've kind of created our own class system, and a lot of that class system is based on people's accents, being able to identify the working class accent and the middle class accent and the upper class, and in a sense people feeling disenabled to be able to access things because of how they sound with their accent, or even being felt that they had to be silent because of how they sound. But then on the other side of it, the people judging the accent as putting traits and abilities on people based on how they sound. Like a working class person equals stupid, equals low education, access equals, so you kind of get all of these, things added on to the voice simply because of how it sounds. There's kind of different ways in which the voice itself, when it's spoken, is supposed to be representative of a lot of symbolic identity, which is a way to kind of, in a sense, keep a system in place. It raised those ideas for me, which is really interesting.
Vicky, I was really interested in your work and the instruments that you've built, and I'm interested in as well, like how you start developing a design, because if you haven't come from like a tech, but how do you start, and also how do you deal with failure in that?
Constantly fail. Failure is a state of being. As always. I think one of the things I like with the kind of electronics and sort of the sound art communities is sort of the open source aspect. So through the hack space, we've sort of introduced to sort of various routes that you could find schematics online, or and just through sort of performing and meeting other people that have similar interests. People kind of share the schematics, so you might pinch a bit of that, pinch a bit of this, test stuff out, and just kind of reading books, which sounds really obvious. But literally just reading. We started off with it's like a legendary book called Nick Collins' Handmade Electronic Music, which is like the A1 book that people kind of find a way in. So and I quite like that idea, that sort of self-education aspect of it, and people are really helpful as well and kind of share what they've done. You can ask people, what chip did you use for this, or how do you get that sound?
It's really interesting because it seems to have a lot of parallels with live coding as well.
Right,
And there's some really, I've seen so much like amazing work recently of people like making their own electronics. And I'm just like, oh man. It seems to be a fun community.
And people, definitely sort of post things on Facebook or Twitter, and everyone's just really asking how you've made something, and just the idea of you doing it yourself. And kind of, I suppose, the history of kind of, well, in terms of England as well, and kind of the sort of practical electronics magazines, and people, the idea of hobbyists in the nation, and people tinkering at home, that you can make these things. So for us, it was always quite interesting. We had this funding from Innovate UK, and obviously their agenda is about the economy and can you make a product and this kind of stuff. And our agenda is, how can we make artworks with this and have an interesting performance experience? So there's always kind of these tensions of where you're funded and what your objectives are, and even like the hackspace culture as well. There's those kind of tensions. You're prototyping to make something that someone will buy. You can do that, but you can also prototype it to make things that people want to share or perform with.
Do you find any problems with? Have you come up against any corporate things yet? If you had anyone try to buy your ideas to keep them in the bin, to put them away, because I know that happens to a lot of technology. Energy technology, most non-invasive energy technology is patented, bought, and got away.
Well, I think that's with the Innovate UK stuff. If you go to kind of the stage 2 funding, that's when you're really supposed to be sort of testing the market for your idea. So the original funding is because you've had an interesting idea and you can explore the actual how you make that kind of thing. But then if you want to go to the next stage, then it is about commercialising the idea, very much so. But you can do things in like a DIY way. And lots of people we know that do similar work, they have an income from doing kits, for example, or doing workshops, performing. So there's lots of different routes to kind of being a sustainable artist through making technology and electronics that isn't just about, I'm going to have this product in Dawson's next week.
I think those relationships are really interesting though, because it's just like, if you take if you sort of exist outside of the sort of mainstream institutional like art production circles, then you have the trade-off that you're not within the institutions, so you have certain freedoms which you wouldn't have in institutions, but then you still need to be funded, and so it's like, how do you sort of negotiate being able to be funded with the sort of restrictions that come with that? So
I have a question that kind of follows links exactly to that idea. Think about when I'm looking for funding, it's sort of, what are you supposed to emphasise? And do you find that when you're looking for money that you're going, the technology, but you're not kind of going, actually, this is what we can do with it, these are the beautiful sounds we can make with it? Are you finding that you're having, because I remember going to, that instrument building conference thingy, whatever it's called.
Oh, the one in Brighton.
There's one every year. It's all over the world. 9, and I remember going to that a few years ago. Oblux. But I do recall that everybody talked about the tech.
There's a fetishization, definitely.
And I was kind of like, is that a gender thing? Is that the nature of working with technology? What is the, because for me, I was always kind of going through, what does this sound like? So do you find that you're emphasizing, technology over concept, or
I mean, it's all kind of it's all about linguistics basically. So going from kind of like the kind of art school world into sort of the hackspace world, that was a huge like linguistic sea to sail, just to be within this community. But then also getting funding from Innovate, because that's very much the technology strategy board used to be. So then you're writing your bids in a certain way it is about the technology and the interface. Whereas if it was an arts council, it'd be more about the engagement and the
impact.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just we're all as artists, we all just kind of write in different ways. It's just kind of you get the linguistics and the language that you use for different audiences, I suppose.
I'm always curious though to think if the technological space was more gender balanced, would that discourse be different? I'm just curious now, because how can we know that is the natural discourse about technology and making and producing and connecting that art and output? How can we know that that's the actual way it should be when it's been so completely gendered? And I wonder if that genderification of it, in a sense, makes women feel like they then have to adapt to that. They have to go, well, that's the language we learn we have to speak, because the majority does. And then if we do that, are we never going to break it?
I think it can go both ways, can't it? On one hand, it's people are fearful of tech and don't access it, or say, I can't do that because this is cut off from me, or this is a barrier. Or the other way, you get the thing, whereas probably that I fall into, where it's kind of, you go, well, it's kind of like the hyper correction thing, like you must do it really well and have to know your shit basically, and people asking, like anything, like if you've got a gig and where do these wines go? Just that thing of like,
you can say that.
It's like knowing it, like just knowing, so you have an answer. But that doesn't change the linguistic setup. It's just those two responses, I suppose.
There's also this kind of gatekeeping around technology, that if you don't know everything about the kit you're using, therefore your art isn't valid. And for me, that's a huge problem in music technology, because it stops people just making stuff. And I was talking to Duncan Chapman about it. I know some of you will know him, but he's mentoring me or something. And he said, like, if you look back to when the piano was first invented, the first 20 years it was just loud, quiet, loud, quiet, loud, quiet, because people were only interested in the tech.
And
Yeah,
then a few people started going, yeah, but we could make something interesting with this,
Yeah.
make actual art with it.
Yeah.
And I think that critique that you're talking about, that you go to art electronica and it's like, well, it's all very clever, but what does it mean? Why should I care? Where's the art? What are you saying? And I think that question is starting to become louder and louder.
Yeah.
But I think there is within like the technological community, there are people who are very passionate about the technology, and they've been at the forefront of it, but they're not necessarily artists. They're just really excited about the tech. And then other people start picking it up and going, well, actually, I don't need to know every single bit of it to use it and make my thing.
Yeah.
So I think we're at a point where things are starting to shift a bit, and that gatekeeping is being broken down, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm
No, carry on. Sorry.
constantly saying, can you go back to basics? You know, and also just physically it needs to be a bit different setup for me, so I'm constantly saying, no, that's not going to work, you're going to have to make that far more easier and more basic for me to use. But yeah, people get obsessed with the technology, and it's like, yes, but actually I wanted to create this particular sound or this particular noise, but I want it to be quite easy to be able to do that easily. Yeah, it is quite challenging. Yeah.
But it's a way of excluding people who
Yeah.
haven't had that kind of education.
Yeah.
It becomes a very exclusive mentality to be like, well, if you haven't been through all these schools and learned all these things, then you can't be in our gang.
Yeah.
And then even
and
further
it's
along,
problematic.
it shapes the discourse of practice.
Yeah.
So, like, so
Yeah.
so if you have a dominant group in
Yeah.
control of what produces sound, what
Yeah.
creates video or interactivity or all of that, but then the art that's created ends up also belonging
Yes.
to the group.
Sorry, I just have to stop you because we need to wrap up this session, because we need to do a bit of the resetting for the panel session, and we'll also come to these topics in the panel session. So if you can wait 5 minutes.
Pause.
But do either of you have a final wrap-up comment that you want to make, or no?
And just make your own stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good to me. So I'm just going to reset a bit, and then at 5 we'll start the panel. So.
We've got a dash job.
Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. Thanks so much for coming.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, great. I really enjoyed your talk as well.
I try to read every single word.
Okay.
Great to meet you. I use Facebook for the big things I want to say. I'm still trying to figure out what.
And also things like, I've been thinking about you all day, and you're like, right, L-O-K. It gives me an people I've never met. And it's like, it's the woman I'm sitting next to, and I'm tweeting her name like 20 times.
It's not going to learn it.
It's so frustrating. And then I have to go back and find your profile and click on the link, and by the time I've done all that, you finished talking. I'm like,
Rebecca, can you just put this down?
Yeah, sure. I can remember what her hashtag. You don't want to end the camera shot.
I like right in the camera.
I'm like, I'm actually really, I'm enjoying Joe's gold bottle. It's this kind of iconic figure with the room.
oh, wrong. Sorry. I've been using the wrong hashtag all this time. But yeah, Twitter, it's just such, it's so funny. Like, I wanted to tag you and Gemma, and it wouldn't let me tag both of you without deleting and going back into yours, and then copying and pasting yours, and then going to hers and clicking tweet, and I was just like, that's like 10 minutes ago. I tried to start. But if I don't know your Twitter